everybody, hope you all had a wonderful weekend. So today we are looking at a monologue from the Comedy of Errors. As always, that monologue is in the description below. Take a moment to pause me, read it, and then come on back. Okay, here we go. The Comedy of Errors is, as the name would suggest, one of Shakespeare's comedies. It is probably the most confusing of his comedies, and it's going to be very hard to describe, and here's why. In this play, there are two sets of identical twins. Both of them have the same names. We have two gentlemen who are brothers who are both named Antipholus. We have two other gentlemen who are also brothers who are both named Dromio. And they meet during the course of this play. So yeah, let's see if we can get this to work, shall we? Let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. Before the events of the play, we have a merchant whose wife gives birth to twin boys. These are the two Antipholuses. I doubt that they were actually both named Antipholus at the start of this, but we'll explain why they probably were both received the same name in a little bit. In the meantime, there is a poor woman off to the side, who we never actually meet, who gives birth to another set of twin boys, and the merchant says, "Hey lady, you're poor, I'll give you a bunch of gold if you let me raise your sons as servants to my sons." And she says, "Gold? Sure, why not?" And so her two twin boys come to be servants of the twin baby boys that were born to the merchant. Keeping up so far? I'm not. Anyway, the merchant decides it would be a great idea to take his family on a voyage across the sea. So he takes his wife, his two babies, the babies who are servants to his two babies, and they go on a boat. The boat gets stuck in a terrible storm, because Shakespeare loves storms and shipwrecks too. Woo! He, the merchant, takes one of his babies and one of the servant babies and ties the three of them to a piece of wood so that they'll float. Meanwhile, his wife takes the other of their babies, the other of the servant babies, and lashes herself to another piece of wood. The ship sinks, they get separated, and they think that the other set dies, which is probably why both sets of twins are named the same, because at that point, since the other ones are all dead and they probably couldn't tell which baby they grabbed in the tempest, they probably said, we'll name him the older one. That way, it's all good, right? That's who I figure I grabbed. I would have grabbed the older child. Perfect. Cool. So, the ones who were taken by the Duke are raised in the city of Syracuse. The ones who were taken by the Duke's wife are raised in the city of Ephesus. In the city of Ephesus, that Antipholus grows up, marries a lady named Adriana, and has a pretty decent life. The other ones have a pretty decent life because their father is a wealthy merchant. And one day, the Antipholus and Dromio of Syracuse decide to take a trip to Ephesus. They go. And along the way, they get a lot of people who get very confused because it's people of Ephesus who are like, "Oh, hey, it's Antipholus and Dromio. How you doing, guys? Oh, by the way, you owe me money for this thing, or here, there's this thing that I made for you that you need to take now." And, of course, Antipholus and Dromio of Syracuse are like, "We've never met you before." And this causes some issue with them. Also, during all of this, by the way, the two Dromios are continuously getting mixed up with each other and with their own bosses. Like, Dromio of Ephesus is sent out to go grab some of his master's money, but Dromio of Syracuse shows back up to Antipholus of Ephesus and doesn't have the money, doesn't know what Antipholus of Ephesus is talking about because he's not the right Dromio. I know, it's confusing. Anyway, shortening this up a little bit, Antipholus of Syracuse meets Antipholus of Ephesus' wife, and doesn't know who she is, but thinks her sister is really cute, so starts flirting with Antipholus of Ephesus' wife's sister in front of Antipholus of Ephesus' wife, who thinks that this guy who's flirting with her sister is her husband. Shenanigans ensue, and eventually Antipholus of Syracuse and Dromio of Syracuse end up in an abbey, which is a home for nuns. Antipholus of Ephesus and Dromio of Ephesus have been kind of shunted off to another place because Antipholus of Ephesus' wife threw him, he got thrown in jail at one point today because he was mistaken for the guy who they mistook for him. Yeah. And everybody ends up meeting in front of this abbey because the wife, Adriana, is speaking to the Duke and says, "Hey, my husband has holed himself up in this abbey. You need to help me get him out." And then her husband shows up and is like, "Duke, My wife has done a lot of really crazy things. All these people who are around you have done some really crazy things to me today. You need to help me. That's where this monologue comes in. However, I am going to tell you the rest of this story because I think you deserve to know at this point. Essentially, what ends up happening is the leader of the abbey comes out with Antipholus of Syracuse and Dromio of Syracuse. The twins are all in the same place at the same time, which allows everybody to sit there and go, oh, we have made some mistakes today. And we actually find out that the lady who runs the abbey is the long-lost wife of the merchant. The Antipholus are brothers, the Dromios are brothers, and everybody lives happily ever after. So, the monologue that we have today is Antipholus of Ephesus after having probably the worst day of his life. He's been mistaken in things like there's a goldsmith who says he made a chain for him, and the goldsmith gave it to Antipholus of Syracuse. So Antipholus of Ephesus never saw it. And the goldsmith had him arrested because he thought that Antipholus of Ephesus was just playing around and trying to get out of paying him. Antipholus of Ephesus' wife has thrown him into a locked room with a conjurer, as he calls him, who, basically she's trying to exorcise whatever demon she thinks has possessed him at this point. And essentially, he's just had a really, really rough day, and he is, at his wit's end. There is no more left in him. He is just this is what happened. So let's have some fun with him today, shall we? My liege, I am advised what I say, neither disturbed with the effect of wine, nor heady-rash, provoked with raging ire, albeit my wrongs might make one wiser mad. This woman locked me out this day from dinner. That goldsmith there, were he not packed with her, could witness it, for he was with me then, who parted with me to go fetch a chain, promising to bring it to the Porpentine where Balthasar and I did dine together. Our dinner done, and he not coming thither, I went to seek him. In the street I met him, and in this company, that gentleman. There did this perjured goldsmith swear me down that I of this day of him received the chain, which, God he knows, I saw not. For the which he did arrest me with an officer. I did obey, and sent my peasant home for certain ducats. He with none returned. Then fairly I bespoke the officer to go in person with me to my house. By the way we met my wife, her sister, and a rabble more of vile confederates. Along with them they brought one Pinch, a hungry, lean-faced villain, a mere anatomy, a mountebank, a threadbare juggler, and a fortune-teller, a needy, hollow-eyed, sharp-looking wretch, a living dead man. This pernicious slave, forsooth, took on him as a conjurer, and gazing in mine eyes, feeling my pulse, and with no face as 'twere outfacing me, cries out, I was possessed! Then all together they fell upon me, bound me, bore me thence, and in a dark and dankish vault at home they left me and my man both bound together, till, gnawing with my teeth my bonds in sunder, I gained my freedom, and immediately ran hither to your grace, whom I beseech to give me ample satisfaction for these deep shames and great indignities. Hope we all enjoyed that today. I hope we were able to follow along. If not, I highly recommend SparkNotes and their No Fear Shakespeare. They've got a really great summary that will explain this in hopefully more detail than I was able to. Also, a little quick note. If you are interested in watching any live theater during this time, I know that Shakespeare's Globe and the National Theatre of London are both releasing a lot of recent things online on YouTube for people to watch. I know that the National Theatre has a production of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. The Globe has a production of Romeo and Juliet that is out there. They're only available for limited times. I don't know how long they're available for at this point, but if you're interested in seeing some of these plays we've talked about, go check them out. They're really, really quite good productions. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye!